Hello and welcome everyone to this issue of Talent Talks. Every time we have one senior CHRO with us. Today we have with us Mr. Murari Madhab Mishra, popularly known as 3M. He's the CHRO at Stelis Biopharma. Welcome, Murari.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Thank you so much.
So you know that every time we take a topic, and if you remember in one of the earlier episodes, I had used an analogy: water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. So we see so many people all around across the country, across the globe, but almost all industries are today facing a huge talent shortage. And today we have with us Mr. Mishra, who's from pharma industry. For me personally, pharma industry holds a special significance. I spent 10, 12 years over there, and it will be really fascinating to hear from Mr. Mishra as to what is there in pharma industry, what is the talent shortage that the pharma industry is facing, how does one really navigate, and what could be certain nuggets that could be used by various people to overcome this talent shortage. So Murari, why don't you first introduce yourself?
Sure, Vijay. Thank you so much for having me on this show and hosting this. And this is fantastic to be here. I have been working in the industry for about 20 years now. I started off with Dr. Reddy's as a management trainee and worked there for about 10 years in two different stints. And I also dabbled in entrepreneurship for about 2 years, and then Reliance Geo for about 3+ years, and now I have been heading HR for Stelis Biopharma and concurrently Steady Science Specialties Private Limited. These are two sister companies. We are in the process of creating a new company out of all of the work that we have within these two entities, and that is in the public domain. So this is what I have been through, and happy to be part of the pharma industry for quite some time.
Thank you very much. So I've been, as I said, I've been part of the pharma industry for 10, 12 years prior to, and that at
True.
that time, Dr. Reddy's and Renvaxi used to be kind of fierce competitors. I remember those days.
Yes.
So now coming back to today's discussions, as you said, you have been in the industry for 20 odd years. How do you really describe the entire talent landscape in the pharma industry today? And how do you see it has really changed over last 15, 20 years?
Okay. The amount of work that we have done in the pharma industry, the kind of business, the kind of number of products, number of manufacturing facilities, the kind of R&D centers that have blossomed over the different parts of the country, all of that has happened over about 30 to 40 years. The real takeoff happened around 85, I believe, when the API industry took off. There have been industries before that also, but the real force with which India entered the API industry in the world was around the 80s, and the formulation followed in the 90s, and then the specialties followed thereafter. All through this, the talent landscape has evolved to cater to the demands, and sometimes a supply shortage has created a requirement for different courses. So the industry has evolved to cater to the growing demand, and the academia has also tried to match in lockstep with the talent requirement.
So you said that there have been a lot of products that have been coming up after 80s, especially API boom. I know I was part of some of it, which has really impacted the talent requirements for the industry and ultimately the shortage of it. But how significant is this talent shortage, and how is it really impacting the pharma industry today?
Okay, let me try and give some numbers to put this in perspective. The industry has been growing at a very rapid pace. It was about $50 billion, Indian pharma industry, about a year back. Now it is getting closer to $65 billion. So it's a pretty quick growth. And if the viewers can guess what will happen by 2030, we will be reaching about $130 billion, doubling in about 5 to 6 years. And the kind of pace that we are seeing, the kind of growth that we are seeing, is all driven by two elements: the manufacturing footprint that we have in India and the R&D footprint that we have created, coupled with the domestic demand. This is driving the growth story. And we need double the number of people. It practically means we need double the number of people over these 4 or 5 years to be able to manage that demand.
Correct. So, with all this, what is really contributing to the talent shortage? Is it that people are not there, the workforce is aging? What is really happening? Why this talent shortage?
Okay. uh, we are already employing, the industry is already employing about 17 to 20 lakh people. There are a large number of pharma institutes churning out the B pharmacies, M pharmacies, the MScs in chemistry, biotechnology, BTechs, all of that. However, the industry requirements and the academic offerings are at a mismatch. They have been for some time, and that is contributing in large part to the shortage in the talent. It would be very, I mean, oxymoronic to say that we have, on one hand, a large supply of demographic dividend, people in the 20 to 35 years of age, and yet we have not the kind of supply that we would want. The demand and supply, there is a mismatch.
Why do you think is there's this mismatch of demand and supply? Is it that academia industry mismatch? What is the reason why this mismatch is there? Because there's so many uh, colleges who are churning out B farms and M farms and various other things on pharma. So why is this mismatch?
um, like they say in Hindi, tali do haath se basti hai. So if there is a mismatch, naturally both parties are
Absolutely.
also party to this mismatch. So let me take it one at a time. The in academia, now we have, let us say, people who are getting ready in the area of chemistry, now MSc chemistry. There is a large amount of work in the industry that happens in the chemistry area, that is driven by instruments, like gas chromatography, HPLC, GC, and various other instruments, mass spectroscopy. Now, the kind of work that the industry does, the academia is not able to support, primarily on these counts specific to these areas, that they haven't trained their students on these instruments. So when they reach the industry, they are going to take at least 6 months to be able to be client ready. They have to churn out reports using these instruments, but they haven't had the experience, and they are going to be on the, it's like, in the IT industry they say quality and production. So there is no time for learning. They have to be on the shop floor churning out reports for their clients, and if they can't do a good job, then they are going to impact the business outcome. So this is one anecdotal example of how uh, a certification is insufficient. Industry experience that is needed can be built in the academia. This is one part of the story. And there are other such build-ups where the academia can help create different areas. If you wish, I can take one more topic up
Yeah,
and
please
then
go ahead.
move.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So there is another topic on the kind of work that happens apart from the instruments. This is one area which is quality control. In quality control and microbiology both, we have instrumentation. Now we need instrumentation exposure more in the time when people are spending their time in the academia, in the colleges. The second thing is some of the subjects. Now, what we expect to work upon in the area when we come to the industry is, let's say, a pharmacovigilance, or we are looking at the analysis of samples. We are looking at impurity profiling. Now, what they are getting taught as subjects are not updated. Some of the subjects have not had a version update for last 20 years. Now this is giving them a difficult time when they have a certificate to prove that they have studied, but they do not have the relevance when they come join the industry, so they struggle.
True.
And this is where the responsibility lies. Now if you permit, I will move to the academia side, from academia to the industry side. The industry also is to help. So on the industry side, we have been seeing a lot of change in the business enablers. In the business itself, we have seen changes. For example, like we discussed in the beginning, we were a API powerhouse, and then we realized that we have to move up the value chain into formulation. And then came biosimilars, drug device combinations, specialties. We have been climbing up the value chain all through these years. And now we needed chemical engineers and chemists when we were in the API boom. We needed the pharmacists when we were in the formulation boom. We needed the BTech, biotech people when we were in the biosimilars boom. Now we know as industry also, we know what we are going into. We should be proactively helping academia get closer to the business requirements by incorporating industry oriented courses. Why, I mean, sorry to just digress a little, why industry oriented courses? Courses themselves should be
Correct.
industry
Absolutely.
oriented 100%.
Correct. I was just going to say that. So it's not just that, but with artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum computing, those kind of things coming up, the pharma industry also needs those skills for
uh,
research.
Thank you so much for bringing this topic up. The place where I work out of, we have isolator technology, whereby we can feed the raw material at one end of the chain, and then at the other end of the chain, the finished material packed, both primary and secondary, and out for shipment can be brought out. So this is isolated technology. It is driven by AI, it is driven by data science, it is driven
Correct.
by computing. We need to help people know how to run these isolated technologies. Today I don't think any student gets to learn that in the colleges.
So I go back to one of the lines that you spoke about, Madhav, which is "Tali ek haath se nahi bachti." That's what you said a few minutes back. Now, while all this is there, what I also see in this entire thing is perhaps a lack of collaboration between industry and academia. So,
Hmm.
if the academia is not really giving us those courses which the industry wants, is the industry sitting on the advisory boards of many of these institutes and colleges and telling them as to what the industry needs? What are the current challenges that the industry is facing, so that the colleges or the institutes can also revise their entire curriculum accordingly? Or when they send students, for example, for internships, they actually send the students for those kind of projects or give them those kind of live projects. The question out here would be, from an industry perspective, and I'm not at a particular company, but more from a generic industry perspective, what strategies are industries, pharma industry, really taking to address this talent shortage? Because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are most impacted. A particular drug gets delayed by a few weeks, few months, few years, they lose huge amount of money, and I'm aware of the entire financials. So, what is industry doing in this all this?
Um, yes, you're right, Vijay sir. That industry is it is a two-way process. So if industry is losing, industry must also take this up with
Definitely.
academia. I believe there have been initiatives. There have been initiatives by individual organizations, individual companies. So I know, for example, there are companies, including my previous employer as well as the current employer in the pharma industry. They have been collaborating with the premier institutes in this area in the country and launching courses which are very specific to this
Fantastic.
kind of need. Pharmaceutics, BSc pharmaceutics, MSc pharmaceutics, and courses that are also it is like, you know, they run in parallel to employment, so people are able to work and study. There have been SMT programs whereby people who have completed 10 plus 2 are able to join industry and in collaboration with these premier academic institutions, are able to pursue their graduation, albeit with little more time. In a 3-year span, now it is expanded to 4 years. But there have been collaborative efforts. What I must say in the same breath is that this has been sporadic, and this has been very specific to organizations, not at a
Absolutely.
industry level.
And this is something which can be increased a lot, and it will help the companies, it will help the industry, it will help the society. Everyone it
Yes,
will help.
everyone. I say this, that we have equations where people can lose. We have equations where people can win. Why
Yeah, it
not
is a
try that?
win-win kind of thing.
Yes,
Absolutely,
yes.
you're 100% right. So you spoke about some of the technologies. I just refer to AI and some of the other technologies. How do you think these technologies, especially artificial intelligence and some more, can be used by industry or are already being used by the industry to address this talent shortage?
Okay. There are two examples that come to my mind. One is where a short-term solution has been found. It can also turn into something longer, but for now, we are trying to find how do we mitigate the lack of skilled people. For example, in the documentation. Now, this is a big part of pharma industry, because the regulators cannot really be standing in front of a supply line, in front of a production line, and keep watching what is happening while the consumption happens in those countries. For example, we are talking about being the 60% supplier of global vaccines, 30% supplier of global formulations. So naturally, these organizations cannot see us do it on a daily basis. So they depend a lot on documentation,
Correct.
and all of the documentation, it gets audited. Like we have US FDA and other agencies auditing it. And the quality of documentation comes into a big a play. It's a power play kind of a thing, like in a cricket analogy. If our documentation is good, sometimes it helps us tide over even the other areas of investigation and supervisory.
True.
If it is not good, even with the highest reputation in the industry over long years, companies have been seen to get warning letters and import alerts. Using AI, now some of these organizations are able to do documentation that is better than, let's say, an average a person's skill set. There are always, humans are always prone to error, but they are error proofing it by using artificial intelligence. So all the documentation that comes is being fed into a machine learning incubator, and whereby all the, I will use some of the technology technical terms that we employ. Whenever there is a gap, we use root cause investigation, RCI, and basis that we do a kappa, a corrective action, preventive action. Now the RCIs are kind of repetitive. I mean, industry is the same, everything is the same, so machines make errors, or machines errors come up during investigations that have a history. If we can feed all of that data into a simulator and the machine can learn it, then AI generated outcome, kappas, can be better. We can take corrective action instead of starting completely from the beginning. Like, why reinvent the wheel? If you have this RCI, look for this problem. So we are trying to solve it. It also helps the people who are on the job to get better at it, because now they are moving up the value chain themselves. Like the industry moved, now people are moving from boring jobs of reading seams of paper to now taking decisions.
Fantastic. So now, if I just take the last point, see, while in any organization, irrespective of this pharma industry or any other industry, attraction of talent is very important. But perhaps, as I always feel, retention of talent is even much more important, because that person is already part of your ecosystem. And with all the technological changes and even otherwise the process changes or economic changes that are happening, it's really important that we need to upskill and reskill the people.
True.
So What strategies are pharma companies adopting to upskill, reskill, and how important is upskilling, reskilling in case of pharma industry?
Thank you so much for the last question that you asked, Vijay sir, because it isn't a choice. While it is a technology requirement, upskilling is necessary, the industry doesn't have a choice because we live in an ecosystem that is growing at a very fast click. Like we talked about doubling up of the revenue in 5 to 6 years, which means the same set of people will be chased by all these companies that are growing. Maybe the viewers, listeners will be very interested to know the number of companies we have in India. We have about 3,000 pharma companies, and we have about 10,000 manufacturing facilities owned and operated by these companies. We have a very large footprint and it is growing even at a larger speed. So all of these people will be poached. That's the industry word. So they will be looking for talent, ready made talent. Why go all the way preparing someone? Why not just lift and shift? So that is the challenge that we already are facing in the industry. So what are we doing to reskill and upskill? Yes. Um, we have, in the places that I have worked and from the discussions I have with peers, each of our competitors, our companies in the ecosystem are looking at creating a development initiative so that there can be a talent pipeline within the organization. While while there is no choice when it comes to filling at the entry level, that we must reach out to academia and get our the trainees on board from the academia, from the society, the people that are within the ecosystem. If they do not grow, the growth will also get stymied, and hence for them to grow we need to grow. For us to grow as an organization, they need to grow. If they do not take up the higher responsibilities, we will not be able to take up the next set of new people, the new joiners. Who will train them? So all of this work, we are looking at two things. One is a skill gap. Wherever there is a skill gap, we are looking at assessing the skill gap and addressing the skill gap through development initiatives. It can be a training program, it can also be a mentoring program within the organization. The second thing we are looking at is the leadership pipeline. While the technical know-how is necessary up to certain level, where people need to be very strong in their work, after let's say a manager or a second level manager level, they need to start looking at people aspects. They need to run the place along with the technology. So they need, technology is not going away, the people management skills are getting added. So we need to develop the leaders of future as well. These are the two things we are doing.
So when you spoke about mentoring, one thing that crossed my mind is also another thing, that it is not just the junior guys who really need mentoring, but the senior guys. Since technology is now getting into each and every aspect of pharma industry, or any industry for that matter, and a lot of time the senior guys are not that well versed with technology, whereas the youngsters are. So there's this
Yes.
concept of reverse mentoring. So would you like to talk about any experience that you would have from a reverse mentoring perspective, and where a youngster is really mentoring a person who might be 4 levels above him?
Yes, yes. This is very interesting topic that you have brought up, Vijay sir. In my previous organization, one area where I have seen it live, this reverse mentoring, we had the global business head, and he was in charge of about 15 geographies, commercial operations across the world, uh, starting with New Zealand, Australia, and ending with Venezuela. So it was a very large operation, about 7,000 people working. All of that is fantastic. But the best thing that I saw in that ecosystem is that the CEO of this business used to take up one management trainee every year. Duration is 1 year. You can't work with him for more than a year. Now, during that year, he will help the person learn the basics of the job, while the person will help him get on with all the new technologies and the new ways of working. So he always had a supply of fresh blood, as to say, those war sightings that I'm using. So he always used to get one fresh person so that he would get fresh perspective. It's amazing that he used to do that about 10 years back.
I think that's really fantastic because that is what goes back to that adage that what brought you here will not take you there. So you need to continuously upskill yourself, and
Yes.
I think it's not just the people at the junior or middle level who need to upskill themselves regularly, but the senior most guys also need to really continuously upskill them. And the way you explained, and I think that's a very good way that the senior guy could have one EA or some such person who could be attached to that person for a year or whatever fixed duration that one can have. And while
And
that youngster learns a lot, actually the senior guy who learns a lot from the way the entire world is moving, where the industry is moving, what is the, because at the end of the day, all of us are serving a customer, and these guys are also representing our customers and their aspirations. So the guys at the top also need to know as to what my today's customer is thinking, and what better way it could be than to have somebody as part of your team who's actually telling you on a daily basis. Fantastic example you gave. Now, one more thing. So while we'll upskill, while we'll reskill, any other strategy you feel companies are taking to retain that top talent? Because as you initially said that there's a talent war, everyone wants to just pick the ready-made talent rather than starting from scratch. So any strategies that you think companies are taking, any innovative ones to retain talent?
uh, tough question. The Every company is making efforts, that's for sure. Every
I agree.
company is making efforts. uh, there are various ways. One is that people are at the leadership level are being given opportunities to take up courses that enriches them.
Hmm.
Many of the people are encouraged to go back to academia for short term courses to learn a new technology that has come. Now they are expensive, they are time taking. If I
Correct.
do it on my own, it costs money, it costs time, and my boss, so to say, may not understand that investment. Now imagine if the company says no, this is mandated by the company. Now the boss cannot say, why are you not being able to give me 100% of your time? Well, it is planned that way. You have 90% time on the job, 10% on the learning, or 80/20, even better. So that is one way where we are embedding learning, external learning, that is, as part of the requirement. uh, there is something in my current organization we do. We have 20% internal learning as part of the performance criteria. So you wouldn't be uh, uh, qualified as a 100% performer if the 20% of the learning has not been completed. This is a little bit of a push model.
Yeah, but 20%
However,
is reasonably high, very high, I'll put it.
yes. So we understand also that it is the quantity that we are pushing, but somewhere it is like the education when we had gone through in our childhood. We didn't love all of the classes, but then we start off, and then slowly, somewhere down the line, we might have fallen in love, and that's how we believe it will be. There is another process that we follow, that we look at the aspirations of the people. We also understand that we need well-rounded leaders at the top when they reach that place. So if they are going to move vertically up, it is going to stymie their ability to appreciate all aspects of business. So we want people to take up different roles that they have no idea about. They will be little less successful in the beginning because they will have their juniors in the new role who know more than them.
Correct,
But then
absolutely.
they but they bring something very different from those juniors, that is the previous experience and the ability to combine both. So we try this approach where we want leadership growth and groom internal leaders for bigger roles in the future. we rotate across functions.
True. So coming back to talent shortage once again, as we discussed over last half an hour, 45 minutes or so, so there are various stakeholders, and for simplification perspective, I'll say industry is one big stakeholder. Companies
Yes.
all combined into industry, the industry associations, and all those things. Academia is another stakeholder. There's another big stakeholder which is government.
Fantastic. Thank you for bringing that up.
Now, how do you see collaboration between at least these stakeholders rather than taking many more? How can a government, academia, industry really collaborate to mitigate this talent shortage so that number one, you help the society, you help the companies, you help everyone? Win-win.
Um, I am harking back to the discussion we had about 15 minutes ago, when we were talking about what is academia doing, what is the industry doing, and how are they collaborating with each other. There is a limitation to that. The
Correct.
limitation is the government. As long as the courses are designed in a manner, and again, going back to that discussion, we are reading or studying 20-year-old material partially because, well, we need to pass, we need to get the certificate, and the academia is being driven by regulations, and rightfully so, nothing wrong in it, but then we have to update it. So that's where the government comes in. I think it is very important that the governing bodies, the government, quasi government governing bodies, need to upgrade our syllabi and make it as industry specific as possible, as industry oriented as possible. In fact, I would say there are some countries that have done very well in this area. They allow some of the courses to be completely driven by industry. They allow, let's say, about 75% is fixed, 25% is open. You design your courses. So universities get that kind of freedom to design their own courses. That I don't think we have at that percentage level, I mean to say.
At that percentage,
If
yes, you're right.
Yes. So once we get there, the universities will have the freedom to design their curricula that becomes easier. So I would say two step: let government help both industry and academia upgrade the syllabi, and let government also step back a little.
So when I look at talent talks, we spoke about stakeholders from a talent perspective, but when I look at talent talks, so the viewers over here, I see there are a lot of young professionals, the students who are wanting to get into industries. One set of people. Other set of people is leaders like you. And third is the people who are in industry already at a junior level, but who aspire to be, say, in a CHRO position. So I have two questions for you. First, what will be your advice to these youngsters, the students who are there, from a talent perspective, from a pharma industry perspective, so what they should be doing so that they really come back fully prepared into industry and they get their jobs, that desired jobs. And second is for the people who are already working in industry, maybe to start with pharma industry, say in HR, who are also part of this audience, what will be your advice to them as to what they need to do? Number one, to of course address some of the issues that their companies are facing from a talent shortage perspective, but equally importantly for their own growth so that they can be the next 3M and the CHRO of an organization.
Sure, sure. Very interesting and relevant questions. Thank you so much, Vijay sir. In fact, I would say, making an attempt responding to the first question you asked. We do hire a lot of people, and we hire them at the entry level, trainees, apprentices, and we look for something. So here is the open secret for those who are applying for jobs. Uh, Whatever you study, while we have discussed with Vijay sir for this long about the ones that can be improved and all of that, what we have, make the best use of. Please do a good job of studying the basics. When we find people are not clear in their basics, it's a big letdown for us. We are hungry for people, so please do a good job of whatever you are learning, learn it well. And the next thing we look when we hire people, we look for the right kind of behavior.
Correct.
If we have people who are hungry for learning, who are willing to put their head down and figure a way out through solutions, instead of complaining about this is not there, that is not there, shortages will be there, problems will be there, roadblocks will be there, but a solution finder is always loved, anywhere of course, but in industry we look for solution finders. So if you are a solution finder, it is just a matter of time before you land a job. One or two failures here and there may happen because the selection process itself is not that robust to find that talent for that skill. However, if you have it, you will land a job sooner than later. And yes, please focus on your academics. On the
I'll
second
just add
point,
to this. I'll
yes,
just add
sure,
before you come
sure,
to the
sure.
second point. I think the way you put it, the solution finder is excellent. And I'll just add to that that, as you rightly said, on the solution finder, it is also about your attitude. The attitude has to be
Yes,
positive. There will always be constraints. There will always be problems. But if you are approaching anything with a positive attitude, you'll get that desired job.
yes.
Because if you are going with a negative attitude, you will not actually go anywhere. As they say, a negative attitude is more like a flat tire in a car. It won't allow you to go anywhere.
True,
Okay, go ahead.
true, true.
Putty.
Thank you, thank you. So for the people who are aspiring for the big job, uh, my journey, Vijay sir, I will try and see and how it chimes with the people, our viewers. I was hungry for learning.
Hmm.
There were times when people said, "Why are you doing this job? Why are you going to a factory? You don't need to go to a factory. Choose a job in a corporate." I mean, if you have the option.
Correct.
Unfortunately, I had, but I chose the factory, and then people were like, "Are you sure?" But no, I wanted to be in the factory where the action is. So my request to my fellow professionals is, choose all the jobs. Don't be constrained by the fact that, okay, if I choose this, people will possibly stereotype me. Well, some will, but if you have early on experience from different fields, it is a big advantage, because later on, as we move up in the ladder, and connecting back to the leadership discussion that we had some time back, we need cross functional understanding. And if people just in a function have grown to the top, they are always having this constraint, whether they believe it or not, whether they accept it or not. Well, they haven't seen 3 4 different places. We can't see all, but we must see a little more than just one. So choose when you are still young in your career, and
Absolutely.
choose as many varieties as possible. As you go up, this will help you. And please know, I had this in my mind. I thought jobs, it's a demand supply thing. So the number of let's say BUHR heads are many, in comparison to, let's say, the CHROs. It's like a 10 to 1, 5 to 1. So I had a desire to be, at the end of my career, a SBUHR head. I actually did not know whether I'll become something more than that, but I knew that if that's the way, that's the point where the volume ends, I should be able to reach there. Beyond that, it's a matter of all of the work that we have done through the years and a bit of luck.
Absolutely.
So that's it.
I
What
think you're right.
reach there? Yes, sir. Tell me. Sorry,
So
tell me, please.
yeah, so as you rightly said, learning should never end, and I think that's what I hear from you, Murali, Murari, that we should not ever end our learning, irrespective of whatever level. Even if you have 5 years experience, 50 years experience, continue to learn something. The world is changing, and that's where you will reach and aim high, as Murari said on this one. So I think that's really fantastic. So today we had, as all of us have heard of this company called 3M, which is one of the best organizations. With us, we had another 3M, which at least I find the entire discussion was amazing, and I'm sure all our viewers and listeners would have really seen that the depth of the discussions and the way you explained 3M on all the aspects was really amazing. I'm so happy with. I learned a lot in this entire discussion. Thank
You're
you for
kind.
all the times.
You're kind, Mr. Vijay. Thank you so much.
Any last word that you want to say for any our viewers that this is what they should not be doing or this is what they should be doing? Any advice? Last advice?
Uh, while the topic we started with is talent shortage, uh, for an individual, this is
Yeah,
very specific. I'm putting that caveat. For an individual, there is no shortage.
absolutely. I agree. It's the constraining factor is you yourself. The constraining factor is are you really going overboard and out of your comfort zone to learn new skills, to upgrade yourself, to upgrade yourself, and the opportunities that you see in the world would be huge. So while everyone talks about talent shortage, but if you are the talent, then there's no shortage because people are actually looking for that talent.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Murari Madhab Mishra
Thank
ji,
you.
and
Thank you,
just
Vijay sir. Thank you so
fantastic.
much.
Thank you. Bye bye. Best wishes
Bye
to you.
bye. Best wishes to all our viewers. Thank you so much. And